Industrialization, Modernism, and 1886.
It's May 1st, 1886, and Albert Parsons is walking arm in arm with his wife Lucy down this same stretch of Michigan Avenue. They're leading a group of tens of thousands of laborers demanding an 8-hour workday and other improvements in labor conditions. It was shortly after the Civil War. There had been a terrible depression, and the solution to this depression was mass industrialization. So industries in Chicago imported workers from all over the country and all over the world, a great many of them being from Germany and Bohemia and other European countries. They left behind their stories. And what I mean by that is they left behind their communities, their histories, their languages, all of the things that identified them as being the people who they were. And they came to a country where they knew nothing. Modernization is all about trying to replace those grand stories that people left behind. One of the ways they did this was to adopt new stories. And the stories that people tended to adopt were the stories of ideologies. The labor movement, socialism, communism, even anarchy, which is really no story at all. The whole idea was that in order to be a person, you had to have some kind of meaning. And if your history, your family, the society that you left behind, the institutions that you were a part of, couldn't provide that story, you had to go someplace else. And these are the places they went.
Albert Parsons' walk down Michigan Avenue on May the 1st, 1886, was one of the last few times Parsons would publicly declare his disdain for what industrialization was doing to the working class, at least as a free man. The events of May the 1st and the next few days would change the way people responded to the dehumanizing effects of technology on people. Almost 10 years before, on the afternoon of losing his job at the Chicago Tribune for speaking at a meeting in support of railroad strikers, he visited the offices of the German-language paper, the Arbeiterzeitung, when he was picked up and escorted to City Hall to account for his activities. That same year, a young German immigrant named August Spies joined the Socialist Labor Party, where Parsons was already a member. Spies would eventually become editor of the Arbeiterzeitung. He had come to America, as had many Germans, looking for opportunities in a newly industrialized economy. The Germans were in a good place to see both the profits and the losses of what would come from industrialization. Germany came late to the Industrial Revolution, but they were well positioned to cash in. In 1871, the year before Spies emigrated to America, the German Empire came into being, unifying Germany and leveraging the economic and labor power of strong regional governments to take advantage of what became known as the technological revolution, in which innovations like steel, electricity, petroleum, and the ever-growing system of rail transport became the backbone of the German and the world economy. But Germans saw the dark side of this revolution too. Adolf Menzel began his painting Eisenwalzwerk, the iron rolling mill, in 1872, the year August Spies left Germany. And it's easy to see what he was leaving behind. The poverty and confusion of working people who moved from stable, predictable, familiar rural communities in which everyone knew everyone else and knew the rules that govern society, to the unpredictable and chaotic urban wasteland in which you were a cog in the wheel of progress. When immigrants arrived in the Midwest in order to find a better life, they got something other than what they had bargained for. And it all looked eerily familiar. Some arrived in the late 1840s after failed revolutions in the face of increasing industrialization. Some, like Spies, arrived after industrialization had taken root in Germany. Perhaps they were fooled by the trappings of what they call the Gilded Age, a time when the progress and expansion in America painted a thin veneer of wealth and prosperity over a body of social problems that would give rise to the labor movement, one of the ideologies that developed to replace the common generations-old stories that immigrants had left behind.
On August the 4th in 1886, somewhere between 600 and 3,000 people gathered on this spot to protest. They were protesting two things. The first was the death of two strikers at a machine factory not far from here. The other was the continued demands for an 8-hour workday, something that we take for granted today. August Spies stood up on a hay wagon along with two other labor activists. 175 police stood by to disperse the crowd. Partway through the speeches, someone lobbed a dynamite bomb into the police. 7 were killed. In the firefight afterwards, 4 civilians were killed. This marked the end of a labor movement, but the beginning of another movement, a much more international movement in which people demanded workers' rights across the globe. That May Day, May the 1st, all the way through May the 4th, that window of time became a time of rallying laborers together to make demands for safe working conditions in the workplace.
The Haymarket affair did not end well. August Spies and Albert Parsons, along with 2 associates, were hanged on November 11, 1887. In 1893, the governor of Illinois called them victims of hysteria, packed juries, and a biased judge. And he pardoned the 3 participants who were still alive and in prison. No one knows who threw the bomb. Perhaps it was someone responding to the call for revenge for the victims of killings at a protest the day before. But whatever the truth, it remains remembered as a battle of ideologies. Laissez-faire capitalism against organized labor, individualism against socialism. Our modern-day political polarization is driven by clashes of ideologies, grand narratives that took the place of practical local histories. The labor movement of the day was squelched for a short time, but it came back again in a variety of social and political ways. And the battle between economic systems driven by ideologies remains as well. A clash unique to the modernism born of the technological revolution.
A cloudy day for me, since good luck came knocking at my door. Skies are gray, but they're not gray anymore.